I've got to make sure that this is actually working, because, like, it always makes me vaguely nervous to start on YouTube or Twitch after I started on one or the other, because it's like, they're completely different audiences. Like, I mean, there's some overlap. Like, there's almost a guarantee that my Twitch folks ain't interested in hearing about LP shit, and there's like a certain guarantee that most of my audience here is going to book if like they see, oh yeah, he's just gonna turn this into a gaming channel. So, but if y'all want to follow me on Twitch and see me fucking game, you can see Insanity is free. Somebody say words.
I thought you were gonna say a gay channel.
If y'all want to see me and enjoy if y'all want a sick bottle of Moscato, this is the place to be.
All right.
Yeah, and spread fake news apparently.
So
we'll.
We need a proper intro, I think.
Yes, he is.
That's a whole lot of fake news with your
Kareem. I am not drunk enough to not know that Chomsky's on the list.
Well, he isn't, so I'm telling you.
Yes.
You're an alcoholic.
I am definitely not an alcoholic. I don't drink very often.
Well, see, that's why, you see, but that just means you're going to be a lightweight this time.
All right, screen share.
So,
nah, I'm good.
No, so we'll be, like, going over the recent stuff involving the Caryn sitch a little bit more. We've got some people willing to talk about the bylaws today. We've got Hody also, who wants to talk about, like, the Christian aspect. We got Joe on, who wants to talk about the corrupt aspect. Rose, who wants to talk about how Angela basically fucking fell off. Kareem wants to talk about how this is all solvable by syndicalism. So let's get
I don't think I agreed to that, but okay.
Well, you're free to say what you want. I'm mostly shit. Like I'm talking shit, but like
yes, we're gonna get into trouble.
Rose is on her Dami Mommy arc.
Well,
we knew it was only a matter of time.
Well, so
Bryce, you can get a job at Fox or CNN.
I don't want a job at Fox or CNN.
They pay well, and you can make up fake news there.
Kareem, I can't say that on YouTube. This video will get taken down.
Why? Because you're making fake news?
He was about to say a gamer word.
Because I had something that I was going to say about Fox and CNN news hosts, but YouTube would take this.
But no, mate. He's fighting the deep state.
I think Kareem is obsessed with gnomes and should stay out of yards for the moment. Let's get going with the general vibe of the last stream was we had some like progress talking about the issues as they stood. We're probably gonna have like the same people who were there before also on today. Dana says she's gonna show up. And the general I want to get as many people on as possible. So if y'all see this and you want on and you're a part of the LP, and you want to talk about like the corruption and shit, let me know. But like the general vibe, first off, let's do brief intros. Each of y'all take like a minute to say who you are and what the front.
Who are we starting with?
A person who says words.
All right, fine, I'll start. I'm Bryce. I'm from Wisconsin, member of the LP, state organizer of the LP Mises Caucus, Catholic anarchist, very, very devoted to digging into Austrian school economic literature and stuff of that nature. And yeah, I'm here to have a good time with people I'm friends with.
You don't want nothing but a good time, and it don't get better than this.
But not a long time.
Yeah, but did I just make myself the old person in here and make the poison reference that nobody got, or?
Yeah, no, I got it.
All right, cool.
I actually got the poison reference because my mom was big into Bret Michaels. So.
You're like, I recognize that from the other thirst. Yeah, no, I got into Poison because of fucking Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie. And he rolls up in this quad and he's listening to this song, and I'm like, I want to listen to that song. So I then got into Poison, and this was after I got into like Motley Crue. That's why I started to grow my hair out, because of Motley Crue. Fucking then it's been like a weird hill ever since. Hodie's like, that makes fucking sense, and is also something I'm not insane about, because fucking that there's those people, them's people. Hodie, we'll do you next, since you're moving your head around a lot.
Sure. I'm Odie Johns with the Love First Christians. Again, same as everybody else, excited to be here. Didn't even know what the topic was going to be tonight, but I know I've been busy a lot lately and I missed you guys. A little bummed to find out we'll be talking about LP stuff, but I will say it is important that we do talk about it. It's just not fun. It's a little like eating vegetables. Like I know I need to do it, but yeah.
Yes and no. Everybody seems to really like LP gossip. They seem to draw the most numbers of views.
Also, I like vegetables. I put spinach and onions in my noodles. I made gamer food after I did my gamer games. So well, and just to be clear, we'll be doing a more principles oriented theories stream on Sunday at 8 Pelham Elmstern. So feel free to tune in for that. If I say the word completely incorrectly and make it unintelligible so that nobody knows what I said, they'll tune in. That's how it works. I'm very professional. Joseph, we'll go to you, then Kareem, then Rose, then back to Bryce, since he had his hand up.
Oh, actually, I can tell after this.
Now, the thing about eating your vegetables is you got to make sure you put them back in the wheelchair when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to eat the whole vegetable. Like, if you don't, you got to make bone broth. Like, Native Americans would not smile on the waste.
You still have to find a place to hide the wheelchair.
Money either.
You don't have to hide the wheelchair. You just repurpose it. That's some good piping. You could mail-in vote.
Okay.
Joseph.
Wrong.
So market anarchy, that's where we're at. You know, agorism, there are things we can do without becoming dependent upon a system of central bankers or a state-issued fiat currency. We watched the money in Rome deteriorate until it was worth less than nothing. We're watching the money in the United States at the tail end of empire fall apart. Market anarchy and agorism, the way forward, because before much longer, it's all we're going to have. You know, we'll have a Weimar, the Weimar Republic economy.
Well, if you want to pronounce it right, it's Weimar.
Weimar.
Yeah.
Weimar.
Ich bin Deutsch and Scottish. Go ahead.
Right.
Yo, you were.
Go ahead. Move on to the next.
Okay, all right. If that's your intro, I didn't want to cut you off with my weird German shit.
Wait.
I mean, we can go back to, you know, anarchy. It's not about the journey, but the friends who betray us and the enemies we make along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
We're moving in that direction with rapid speed.
Well, you know, that's pretty based, if you ask me. I endorse things that are fast. So,
In based.
yeah. Kareem, Rose, and then we will get store-torted.
All right, so I'm basically the opposite of Mr. Hodie over there. I did like Austrian theory and still do. It's okay, but decided, hey, I wanted to see what else was working. And yeah, you can find me on X at Kareem6633 and ArcUnity. Check out Keith's website, attackthesystem.com. I'm an Ansin man. Ansin Stan. Union meetings at 3, because if you have a free market, nobody will show up because they all want to be individualistic and go woo-hoo and get drunk. See?
Well, what works? Well, then it's definitely not Congress. Oh. Yeah. Fucking nobody's ever made that joke before. It's still a joke even, because it's still funny even after it's been repeated like 800 times. Rose.
So, I'm Rose. You all saw me yesterday. For those of you with short-term memory loss, I'm the patron saint of real libertarians. As far as my big L shit that I can't seem to tear myself away from. Let's see, I'm a member of the LPNY State Committee, a member of the LPNY Platform Committee, Communications Committee, and served my first term on National Party Platform Committee. I'm here because I don't want to end up being added to the collection of doll heads on the wall, okay? I am not here to shit talk anybody. I am not here because I'm a threat to the Mises Caucus.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm being good, I promise.
yeah. Bryce and Hody. There's a new thing that the Libertarian Party tried to blacklist Rose. For
Well, it wasn't the Libertarian Party. It was one guy from the Mises Caucus.
It
who
was
tried to
one
claim that, like,
specific
I
member,
was trying
and
to
they
join
got
a-
shut down promptly.
Well, basically,
It got shut down pretty promptly, but like, yeah,
associating
yeah,
with
there-
me in any positive
ahead.
way just gets you like eventually. And then one of the people in there said that I heard he has doll heads mounted on his wall. So they're doing that sort of shit. Like, I'm reminded of fucking high school and like middle school and like school in general. It's just like it's that gossip chick shit where, and like it's fucking this chick who didn't like me in the fucking public comment section, or the like section which was basically just a really long public comment section of the recent like Karen shit, because this chick didn't like the fact that I was willing to be a fucking asshole. And also, like, a lot of these people, they genuinely don't like the idea that I'm good at saying words about shit. They would rather I not be good at saying words about shit. And so when I like am actually good at off the cuff saying shit, they're just like, "Oh no, we've got to stop this." He's saying, and so they kept on trying to shut me up. It's fucking hilarious. And so when that didn't work, they just went to other meetings and tried to silence people who were fucking like on my side. So that's hilarious. Anyway, fucking
right, yeah, because like, he mentioned like he was clearly not a hater of the Mises Caucus, and even mentioned that like some of his most frequent podcast guests are Mises Caucus members. Then at one point, like in the comment section, I was apparently being too friendly with him and mentioned that I'm one of the people he was referring to. And yeah, this got brought up at a Q&A session with Angela.
oh
And it
no.
was pretty funny. I mean, this went ignored because, and I had based people. One of them being Bryce, other being Justin from New York. Yeah, who are willing to stick up for me, but it is pretty funny.
One moment, we gotta. So, the general first thing that I want to do is I want to get started on the actual Karen side of this, because the actual Karen side of this is an interesting one to say the least. I was at the meeting, and the meeting, let's just say, it was interesting to start with because I went there and I didn't expect there to be a public comment section. And then there was one. And that was my opportunity to be a fucking cunt in front of people, so I took it. But, like, the general thing that the public comment thing taught me is that, like, they weren't actually interested in hearing from anybody. They were interested in fucking, like, making sure that the public comment got out of the way as fast as possible, so that when people, like, you know, when people had like the executive session brought up, everybody would just be like railroading her into that, where like, oh yeah, now we suddenly have to do this in secret because, you know, things were said at this point that make it seem like you're going to do something unethical, and that's why we have to do this in private. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't have to do it in private. You want to do it in private so that you don't have to show everybody the reasons why you're doing this. And apparently the real reason for that is because not only her, but there were a series of people listed in the report relating to this that were fucking like they were potentially libeled by the situation. And so she's talking about this now, and she's saying that this is the reason that they won't really release the report. But if they do, because now Angela's feeling all defensive and cagey because Caryn talked to Reason Mag, like, if they do, there's going to be a whole lot more reason to sue the party because there's a whole lot of bullshit in these allegations, apparently. And look, I might question it more that there's bullshit in these allegations, but there were bullshit in the allegations against Caryn too. So it would just complete the fucking pie, and I'm not going to claim that they're not still apples, you know? So, Kareem, say words.
Well, it's okay because Elon has a bunch of robots that he released, and they can make friends.
Joseph took a snapshot. He wants to preserve that moment.
No, but the problem is this: Angela ran on a platform of, "Oh, I'm going to help the libertarian," not that I'm going to go and be Republican light. And I hate to say this, but a lot of the old guard said, "Oh, I said they were Democrat light," and they accused Mises of being Republican light. And I'm like, no, we're just principled libertarians. We're just fighting the Ron Paul fight. And then all of a sudden, like slowly but surely, it's like Trump's invited this. They won't say who's voting for. And I see a lot of Mises libertarians like, we got to vote Trump. No, we don't have to vote Trump. I don't care. There's no magical person who's going to win. They're all controlled by special interests, and they're donors. Imagine that. Power corrupts. So,
I mean, like early on, like the caucus was full of a ton of highly principled libertarians, such as ourselves. But it just seems like there's always a trend towards pragmatism, no matter what.
Yeah. Like, I understand potentially saying certain strategies aren't working, but if your strategy is to work in a way that is just going to work for the other side, that doesn't fly with me. And I went on this tirade this morning and, like, tagged Angela directly. She could have said anything to it. She didn't say shit. Her minions, her little stupid piece of shits, they were very angry and called it unintelligible or incoherent or whatever they could get their hands on, rhetorically speaking.
I read it. It was coherent. They just didn't like what they read. Yeah. Look, I mean, I really did like most of the ideas that she ran on. I mean, I voted for her this time too because they said who was the opposition, and also like. So I like the anti-war coalition building. I like single-issue coalitions, but yeah, I just can't get behind a lot of what's going on now. Like, I did not sign up to cuck for Trump, okay?
Yeah, and like right now, and we'll get into the bylaws here shortly because I think Bryce loaded up some of those that he wants to discuss. But the general, like, Angela is running Trump rallies. They're Trump rallies. Like, I don't give a shit what, like, Angela can say whatever she wants on more friendly spaces. But the general vibe is that the general associations, these institutions, these things that she's working with, they, like, openly and specifically endorse Trump. Like that defeat the mandates thing, which is super ironic because he was the architect of the lockdowns. And, you know, like the rescue the Republic thing, as though the Republic wasn't fucking under threat with him, right?
Yeah. I'll just, if we really want to make the argument, I'm not gonna go, one of the statists that I think is okay. But I would make the argument the Republic ended when Lincoln killed 500,000 Americans and pulled it back together artificially. It became an empire after that. The Republic ended after the Civil War.
Okay. Anyway.
There is no Republic. I don't believe that we have one. So to me, also, who'd they have at Rescue the Republic? Jordan Peterson, a grifter. Another grifter, Russell Brunson. Another grifter, RFK. They're all grifters.
Yep.
So to me, yeah, she's just running a bunch of like grifter rallies now. It's not helping anything. They're saying this is anti-war or for anti-war purposes. I don't see that.
That's a stretch. The Rage Against the War Machine was one thing, but Rescue the Republic, I mean, it's kind of a stretch, I think, to say that that's an anti-war coalition.
And why would an anarchist, and let's say we do have why would an anarchist care about a republic? Like, why an anarchist can care about maybe a federation of anarchists?
Yes.
Why?
Coalition building, I guess. I mean, I understand like doing outreach to people who may be receptive to your message, who are still currently in their like, I don't know, minarchist, constitutional minarchist phase. But yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see a point. Like, if you're gonna, I don't think it's a good idea to go ANCAP constitutional minarchist. I think you need to keep going forward. That being said, I don't think there's a coherent plan. I think it just like whatever, like, oh, somebody says they're slightly libertarian or somebody has some leverage in the media, so we go talk to that person. Well, there's a lot of bad people who have leverage that you know we probably shouldn't associate with. Now, if we're gonna try and get relevance, there's plenty of people who, you know, have big enough audiences we can get relevance from. Like Dave Smith goes on Joe Rogan. I'm not saying Joe Rogan's the like optimum libertarian, but there are people we can draw that from. I don't feel Peterson or Russell Brunson or or Russell or you know, Trump or any of these people are ever going to really embrace our ideals. They're just going to see how much money they can get or how much they can draw us, influence they can draw from us. And after that, they'll just say, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
So if we want to actually make the Libertarian Party do something, I'm of the mentality, let's actually help our candidate. B, we need to actually promote real anarchist unity and real anti-state radical unity, like Keith talks about, not getting a bunch of pseudo-statists who said some libertarian stuff together one time. That's not going to do anything. That's not going to change anything. At least in my opinion. They can get mad at me and say, well, you're just being negative. And maybe that's true.
You are being negative on the XY axis. You are very low on your screen. That's what I'll say.
Yes, I'm going to get up and battle evil.
Yeah, right.
Because
I'm glad you said something, so I didn't have to.
All right.
But I don't know. I'd rather hang out with people, even if we want someone with radical views, let's get John Zerzan on. At least he's an anarchist.
I'd rather hang out with, anarchists from across the bottom half of the political spectrum, okay?
No, you don't need any fancy
statist rightoids.
Or leftoids. I mean, that's the thing. So what if the People's Party is willing to coalition with us if they're also coalitioning on the basis of resorting tanky bullshit?
It's a tough one because I do know tankies who manage to have based views on imperialism, but it's not necessarily for the right reasons because their solutions suck. So, I do struggle with, like, to what extent can we ally with them knowing how badly that's going to turn out.
Also, the party name is missing a D, P, H, and I because it's actually the pedophiles party after who they supported. So I had to.
I will say, I don't know. I understand like what, and this isn't me endorsing or rejecting their justification, but what seems to be Angela's intent with allying with Trump, so to speak, is, again, not endorsing it. She is hoping that he'll stick to his promise of putting a libertarian in his cabinet, which, whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, Trump theoretically could still commit to that and then just ignore that libertarians' ideas. But B, the other thing that she's hoping that he sticks to, obviously, is that he'll free Ross Ulbricht, which is nice, and he's certainly the only one of the two that is even remotely promised to do that. But again, that's a promise, and politicians are known for breaking them. And beyond those two things, there really just isn't very much that's appealing about him. I mean, allegedly he wants to end the Ukraine war, which if he does, great. But then he turns around and he fully supports aiding Israel, which isn't ideal.
No.
Yeah, he's in a competition to see who can suck Netanyahu's cock harder. But even that, like, even if he claims he wants to end the Ukraine war, you know he's going to cuck on that because he's cucked on everything related to war.
Right. That's the thing, though. There's precedent to suggest that he might just buckle on that.
Yeah.
Because he had asked Zelensky to look into Hunter Biden being involved with Burisma, or Ukraine wasn't going to get the weapons that they were requesting. And then because the U.S. started pushing the propaganda again and calling him a Putin apologist, he fucking caved and sent them the weapons unconditionally.
Yep.
And that is one of the, whether people want to admit it or not, that is probably one of the major reasons that were effectively, so to speak, the straw that broke the camel's back and led to Putin invading Ukraine in the first fucking place. So,
also,
yeah, no,
like, the other half of that is, like, they want to pretend everything. They had to pretend, and this is the thing, fuck Russia, fuck Putin, fuck people who support either, including Lori Price, the campaign manager for Mike Rechtenwald.
Did the Kremlin put you up to saying that, though? I mean,
Yeah,
you're
right?
anti-war, so therefore you're working for the Kremlin. That's how it works.
Yeah.
But like,
Lord isn't.
but like
yeah, bro, stop being a Putin apologist.
the general thing that I'll
You
say.
stop being a Putin apologist. You were against the
No,
Ukraine
you.
war. I saw your argument with Jeff in our messenger chat.
Eh.
Yeah, I'm an ANCAP man, an ANCAP stand.
So the general thing.
Okay, Putin apologist.
The general thing is that even though I hate the government of Russia, even though I can understand that they're a fascist, oligarchical, like, right-stripping, bigoted shithole, like, the general, like, thing that I could also say is the Ukrainian government is full of Nazis, partially because of the U.S. government, Project Aerodynamic and Muscular, and the long-lasting knock-on effects of that, and also the effect of Radio Free Svoboda and a variety of other propaganda bullshits that happened as a result of that fuck. So, I don't care that somebody wants to claim, you know, I'm some terrible person for saying get out of involvement in Ukraine. But also, if the people doing that, if the people saying get out of involvement with Ukraine are also saying, for instance, that Ukraine should be put down like a rabid dog, then in fact they're not out of involvement with Ukraine very much, are they? I'll pass it to Hody because he's nodding and I feel like he wants to say something.
He's a great warrior.
I mean, at this point, I mean, I guess I'll just go the Christian angle with this one. And I know we're talking about a lot of technicalities and whatnot, but at what point do we bring up character?
Right.
Like, with these people that lie to us, whether it's Angela McArdle or Donald Trump, Angela had every opportunity to say, like, hey, I feel like it would be cool if we did this Trump coalition thing. Cool. You could have run that by the delegates. You could have been like, yeah, let's put Trump up. Let's try it out. Instead, what did she do? She hit it. I mean, everybody in the Mises caucus swore up and down that what is happening right now was never going to happen. And you're just some insane person forever believing that, oh, all of a sudden she's going to support Donald Trump. Oh, you've been listening to the fakertarians too much, you idiot. And now look what's happening. She's running a rally that literally is called MAGA Maha or whatever. Like, it's MAGA in the title. Like, it's done, man. Like, and so I'm just at some point, like, when we go from the old covenant to the new covenant in Christianity, we stopped looking at laws and written code. I guess we started looking at the spirit of things. And at what point do we just say, listen, you might be able to say, like, well, technically this, well, technically that. Okay, well, but if you are being a bad person and getting around it on technicalities, then I have no reason to trust you. Your character's shot. Trump's character is shot to hell. I don't want to do business with Donald Trump. I want to do business with Chase Oliver. Chase is somebody who I know personally. He's a really great person. He should have been given the full support of the LNC. This is a guy who went into a debate with Art Laffer, who is like really good at debate, by the way, and convinced 1/5 of the audience who may have been convinced to join Trump. They literally went in and changed their minds and said, I will not support Donald Trump anymore. 1/5 of the people who listened to him heard that. This person's an excellent communicator. This person has excellent values. This person is somebody who is just really, I mean, the character is beyond reproach, right? I guess you could say he's gay and have a problem with that. But even if you're against like him being gay or him transing the kids or whatever thing you wanted to say, right? Like you could disagree with him on those policies, but ultimately I'm doing business with the man and I'm doing business with his character. And the fact that we would leave him behind kissing dust in order to hope that Donald Trump for once in his life keeps his first promise ever. Come on. Like at this point, this isn't even like PSYOP stuff. This is just moronic. This is just being stupid, right? Like this is just wanting to get hurt. This is leaving somebody who likes libertarianism for somebody who literally mentions the word libertarian by name and then says how stupid we are to be libertarians. Mm-hmm. Calls us out directly and they're like, oh, libertarians? Those idiots. And we said, yeah, we want to shack up with that. Now, we could talk technicalities all day, and I'm sure that you guys will, and you have that handled. But ultimately, on my end, I'm called to judge people by the fruits of the Spirit. That's the only way, because I'm not supposed to judge people. All I can see is the results of their actions. I'm sick and tired of giving people like Angela the benefit of the doubt on this. I've seen her fruits at this point. Everybody who warned me that she was going to support Trump, I was one of the ones telling you were crazy. Yeah, she's right-wing conservative on a lot of these issues, but she's not going to be pro-Trump. Whoops. Yes, I dropped the ball on that one. Why? And I should have known, because what are the fruits? At this point, we've seen what they are. I am so tired of this. I'm honestly, like, this is why I'm, like, so, like, saddened to have, like, it's heartbreaking to me. And maybe it's because, yeah, I have a personal stake in it because I, like, actually know Chase is just, like, a human being. I don't even agree with Chase on a lot of the issues. He's a minarchist. I'm an anarchist. Like, all kinds of, like, issues there as far as policy goes. We could talk policy issues all day. But character's got to matter for something. And ultimately, if you do business with even people with the best... I mean, look at Michael Rechtenwald, right? You can do somebody... Like, I have more in common policy-wise with Michael Rechtenwald than I do with Chase Oliver. But when I get in bed with people that are willing to call people fags and faggots over what they believe, what am I doing here? Why am I doing here? Like, this is so beyond fucked, right? Like, I ordinarily try to keep the swearing down to a minimum. But, like, this dude is now at this, I mean, anti-Semitic conspiracy bullshit, right? Like, he's all in on it. And I should have known. Why? Because it wasn't about his policy. It was about his character. Mm-hmm. And how many times did we go over on the show? Policy pretty good. Policy really good even. Character couldn't tell the truth to save his own life, right? And now what's happening? What's coming through? His policy or his character? It's his character coming through, isn't it? And so I'm done being in business with people that have bad character. And we need to stop talking about it like we're like this is some kind of side. Oh, well, his character's got some issues. No, I know that we're used to, as American people, sucking up a lot because it's politics. It's politics, you got to suck up some. Nobody's perfect, right? At some point, somebody's character is so flawed that you cannot trust them. We cannot trust Angela. We cannot trust Donald Trump. We cannot trust Kamala Harris. We cannot trust Joe Biden. I'm fine with compromising on some things. Like I said, I compromise just to support Chase. I have some compromises there that I make. But those compromises need to be in a healing direction. I'll end by saying this. I think it's a great quote. I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to give it to you loosely with Malcolm X, who was like, man, I'll compromise with a lot of people. Now, people who know Malcolm X, you might think that's pretty surprising, right? Like, Malcolm X, you would compromise with somebody because he's so hardcore. But he's like, here's the deal, though. It's not a compromise to say you can stick a knife 9 inches in my back, or maybe we'll do 6 inches this time. That's not a compromise. That's just caving in. That's selling out. I'm not going to compromise with that. I'm going to compromise with somebody who's like, hey, if we remove the knife from your back, what's the right way to go about healing you best? I want to talk about, like, I'm so sick of talking about these policies because the issue is that they don't matter. The character is going to end up what shines through. I love liberty. I am a practical person. I would say I'm like the pragmatic person that like I will make some deals with Republicans and Democrats. I like Justin Amash, for example, like even though he's got some issues, like I am fine with doing a lot of this stuff. But I'm so tired of like talking policy only when clearly the character is what shines through at the end of the day. I'm going for somebody Christ-like, like whoever's most Christ-like. And I'm not going to apologize for it anymore because this has been the consistent thing. If we're selling out for Satan, what did we win? As the Bible says, what should it profit you if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? Jesus passed up on political power. And if Jesus is passing up on political power, we're saying we're better than him when we try to play the political game better than him. We're not going to play the political game better than him. Politics is Satan's realm. And he's really good at it, and he's got a lot of experience at it. We're not very good at it. As libertarians, we should know we're not very good at it because look at who we're compromising for right now. Donald fucking Trump. Somebody who will tell you to your face that he hates your philosophy and hates everything about you. Somebody who said, let's turn Iran into a glass sheet in the middle of the desert. Somebody who said, oh, here's the exact, not just anti-free speech, but here's the exact clauses of free speech that we need to strike down, and here's the plan that I've made to get rid of free speech. This is who we're selling out for. I'm done, man. I'm just so tired of it. Anybody who can get on board with it, I'll let you debate it out if you want, but honestly, in my mind, the debate's over. It's a stupid thing to do. We've done it a million times. We've got history. If you're still willing to sell out for it, then you're not my kind of person.
Yeah, well, and see, what I'll say, and then I'll pass it to Bryce and then Joe, because like they've had their hands up for a bit. What I'll say is that it's not stupid so much as it's the ultimate reality that these people didn't mind it. And so it's perfectly intelligent for what they were trying to accomplish, because what they were trying to accomplish was never remarkably in line with liberty to begin with. I was one of those extremely negative people that you were like, you know, are you sure it's this bad? And I was like, it's probably worse. And you were like, fuck. And it was like that all the time.
It sure is disheartening, though, seeing takes from people like you turn out to be correct.
Yeah.
When you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and yeah, they end up being as bad as the detractors were saying. Yeah, it's upsetting.
Yeah. Bryce.
Okay, so first off, I'd like to agree with a portion of what Hody said. I do not think making a bed with people of bad character is a good idea, especially people with bad character and bad policies, like the two presidential candidates that actually have a chance of winning this year. With that said, and I love Hody, and I know that Hody is a pretty good judge of character. We needed a candidate this year that was a radical. This was the year where pushing a radical would have been a great fucking idea. And we wound up, and this, I could not give a less about Chase's sexuality. I really couldn't. Those of you who know me know why I couldn't care less about his sexuality. But he is so unbelievably milquetoast on so many things, even war. The issue that is supposed to be his strongest position, he is so like, no, dude, throw the Hail Mary pass. The most radical anti-war person you could be, and he dropped the ball on it. So yes, could the LNC gave him more support? Absolutely. I know that there was areas where they tried to. He was invited to the Rage Against the War Machine rally, and he straight up declined it. But part of that is on him, and it's, I can't fault him for it. He is a minarchist at the end of the day. Minarchists aren't radicals, but this was the election where we needed one, and he's not that. And I for that element, I can't get behind him. No, I'm absolutely not supporting either of the two major party candidates. They can go fuck themselves with a wire brush. Pardon my French. But he wasn't good enough for what we needed. And I just... It frustrates me because this was the year we needed somebody that was more radical. And yeah, unfortunately, this year we didn't have a lot of good candidates that really fit that description. But I don't know. Just our ticket specifically infuriates me just as much as the reality that either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris is going to be fucking president, because this is the year we needed somebody that was hardcore on this shit and not so milquetoast, not the safe choice. And it's frustrating.
So, real quick, before I pass it to Joe, I want to give Hody a chance to briefly respond if he chooses to.
Yeah, I guess if you don't think Chase is hardcore for going before people and telling them to end the Fed, if you don't think he's hardcore for telling people to get out of Ukraine, for telling people to stop arming Israel, I don't know. I mean, he says it publicly. He says it often. The LNC chooses not to amplify it. I don't think he's hardcore on like immigration, but immigration, like he wants it more open. But he still is like for like some regulated government and immigration. It's one of the things we disagree on. So I guess I could see with immigration, like he's not very hardcore, but this might not be the cycle for it, since people like are generally scared of immigrants, which is unfortunate. But, that's where we're at now. I think that's why he got his chance right now and why the delegates wanted him right now. I mean, obviously you've got your own style and things that you're looking for. It makes me sad that you find him just as heartbreaking as the fact that Donald Trump or Kamala Harris is going to be president. That just tells me you don't know very much about him. But like I said, I have a personal relationship with him. I actually cared enough to read his platform. Like, I know what he says. He does great in debates. He is a mind changer. I mean, you can say he's not hardcore, but when 1 out of 5 people who were gonna like potentially support Donald Trump change their mind after listening to you, like, that seems pretty persuasive to me. And I mean, that's for Donald Trump. Angela says, according to Angela, and you know how much we can trust her and her data, that like 90% of the people who are going to vote Chase Oliver voted for Joe Biden last time. So he pulls even more from the Democrats, according to her. So this is a guy who, when you put a microphone in his face, makes Republicans and Democrats say, all right, I'm all in on Chase Oliver. I think that sounds pretty good. And, like I said, policy by policy, we could argue all day. For me, it's a matter of character. I think he's hardcore at heart. He's a revolutionary. This is a guy who, I mean, has tasted tear gas on multiple occasions. This is a guy who stood up for like the homeless camps here in Utah with me when it was like we were very likely going to go to jail, looking down cops. And like, it's a scary situation, you know? And then this is a guy, like, you saw what he did in Atlanta. I mean, this guy does really great work with a microphone in front of his face. I like him. I like the fact that he skipped the Rage Against the War Machine rally. I know both people who attended are very disappointed that he didn't decide to attend, but ultimately, like, he was better off without it. I mean, you look at the stuff that he passed up on and how wise that was. Like, he passed up on Tim Pool. They ended up talking about how it's okay to rape women if they elected to not move out of areas of high rape rates. Oh no, Chase could have had so much like positive with that conversation. No, like, it was a good thing he avoided that. Jeremy Kaufman and Tim Pool are bananas, right? There's no reason to attend that. I don't know. Like I said, it's a matter of opinion. Absolutely. You could say, I think he was right. I think he was wrong. We could debate that all day. What I won't debate really is that he's got a higher standard of character than any of these other people we're talking about. Chase deserved better than Angela McArdle, Michael Rechtenwald, Donald Trump, Jeremy Kaufman, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, J.D. Vance. Like, Chase is in a different ballpark than those folks. This is a guy who's got his house in order. He's a loving person. He's a great communicator. I mean, you can say being anti-war isn't hardcore enough or whatever. I don't know if you want to say this.
You are
Your
mute.
mic cut out, Hody.
Yeah.
I personally think
we
he
cannot-
could have gone on the Tim Pool episode just to push back on what was being said there, but like, I get it. I see both
Yeah,
sides.
no, I
Might be
ju-
something on
just
the
so we're
headphone
clear,
end.
I could not care less that he skipped out on the Tim Pool episode. I've actually stopped watching Tim Pool over the years because
Oh yeah, I watched
he's
this
so cringe as
year.
of
Yeah,
late.
he's so grifty. He went from
Try unplugging things and plugging them back in. I do want you to finish.
Right.
Oh, there
Can
you
you
go.
hear me now?
Yeah.
Don't consider it. So
Yeah, I mean,
good.
this is a guy, I still remember when Dave Smith called for, I've listened to Dave Smith long enough to remember him talking about how Donald Trump should be drawn and quartered in public.
Mhm.
Like, you know, and I remember
Yeah.
saving the episode because people were like, oh, do you know Dave Smith is going to end up selling out for Donald Trump? And I was like, this is a guy who calls for Donald Trump's execution in public, right? Like, that's the type of libertarian I still am. Like, when people are like, oh, you've gone so far left or you're woke or whatever now, I'm still that version of Hody Johns in the Liberty movement. And I think Chase Oliver is too. I don't know. I just think it's really sad that we've sold that vision out for the vision of let's ally with Donald Trump and hopefully he keeps 1% of his promises. What, he's going to pardon Ross Ulbricht and then follow through on his other promise to execute all the drug dealers, right? Like, execute drug users, deport 10% of America at this point. Like, come on, man, this guy's insane.
We've got some comments too that we can address, but like real quick, Joe, you got some words?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things is the Mises Caucus. Everybody from the top down, when they went for their ballot, when they put, everybody vote for, so-and-so back in Reno, and they stacked the deck, they stacked the committee, and they went through the issues of going through individual affiliates and stacking the affiliates. These are individuals who believe in their moral superiority. They believe in, their dark triad, narcissistic sociopath, and they believe that they are justified in lying through their teeth because you're not one of the anointed. You are not human to them, and therefore, whatever they can use you for is justified. And this is what we are dealing with currently with a significant number of the individuals who've taken over primary roles in the Libertarian Party as the MC. And yeah, we still got some amazing people, that are still trying to do things in the MC. Washington State's turned around and, told their adjacent state MC, fight me. We're doing things the Mises way, not the Mises Caucus way. And you've seen a couple other affiliates stand up to the leadership, to Heiss, to Hines, to some of the other policymakers within the organization and say, you know what, the dishonesty, the untruthfulness, the straight up pathological psychosis that's infected so many in the leadership positions, we're seeing the kickback from that. We're seeing people start to drift away, but we are still stuck with too many of them in significant roles where they impact recruitment, where they impact donations, where they impact the will of the volunteers of the
Right.
party who want to be able to take it to the next level. You know, there are people who still want to save the Libertarian Party. I don't know why. We talked about sunk cost fallacy, yesterday. What exactly is it going to cost us in order to save the Libertarian Party? Is it worth it? We still got people who want to, though. They believe in it. Caryn Ann, she believes in it. It's rejected her twice now. She still wants to save it. But it comes back to, we still need to look at the bottom unity, or the anarchy unity. We need to move back from the totalitarian state, and watching the MC lie through their teeth. Sorry, not the MC as a whole, but MC individuals. Individuals within the MC lie through their teeth to justify turning the United States over to a totalitarian presidential candidate because Chase is gay. It was just one of the most bizarre concepts for me.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
and it's a bizarre concept to you because you're still not as much of a cynical asshole as I am. Because I was just over here like, yeah, I saw this coming like a year and a half ago, and I was a cunt about it then too. Rose, you haven't said much. We'll say Rose,
Oh,
Kareem, and then
right.
Bryce.
I was gonna say, you mentioned, okay, why bother to save the party? Well, look, if it's still going to exist, it can still be used as a vehicle for getting like-minded individuals in the same room together so that they can network build and hopefully go in the radical anarchist direction. So, my position on the Libertarian Party has always been, okay, if there's going to be a party with the word libertarian in it, let's have it not be an embarrassment. Now, we can debate over whether or not it's become more of an embarrassment or less of an embarrassment in recent years, but I don't know. I'm also just extremely stubborn, so I haven't walked away from it because, why would I?
Yeah.
I got involved and now I can't leave it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Figure if it's going to exist, we might as well try to fight over it. Okay, at worst, okay, I've met some extremely cool people through my connection with the Libertarian Party.
Hey.
I feel like I know most of you either through the party or one step removed from the party. Pretty sure that is all of you.
Me being an asshole in generally affiliated areas with the party.
Yes, I met you because we got into an argument on a thread or a post you made about the anti-war rally.
Yeah. Fucking, yeah. So, one thing before I pass it to Kareem, I do want to address a few of these comments. First off, Cecilia Juarez in chat says, yeah, Azov Battalion, that's but it's also so, that's part of it. But it's also, there's fuck, I can't remember the fucking shit right now. It's been so long since I specifically went off about Ukraine. But I'm pretty sure it's just Svoboda Party, and it's a white nationalist party. And it's a shame because Radio Free Svoboda and Svoboda Party are both the word Svoboda means freedom. That'd be a great word to not have applied to the Nazis and the Feds. But they fucking shit off that fucking brick. Anyway, Cecilia also says, C-14, there are various, local gangs. There's the fact that all of these people have copies of the Decalogue of the Ukrainian Nationalist on their wall, and that fucking ends talking about enslaving foreigners. Well, I guess that worked. It's a big clusterfuck that any leftist worth their salt shouldn't support the bigoted fucking fascist government of Russia or Ukraine, and you could just start off any sentence describing one or the other. They're just different factions competing for the territory, and they're all speaking in their Cyrillic. It's not something that I'm going to take a side on, and that also means that anybody who does is supporting some form of tyranny, and you can immediately call that shit out. Archie says, maybe don't harp on the detractors. I don't know what you were specifically referencing because it's been like a while. He also says Rec has always been a Trump guy. That's true. He was a deplorable, professor on Twitter for many, many years. Anti-woke professor. He wrote pro-Trump shit.
No. He was a Trump supporter for maybe like a year. Like that was a fairly short-lived phase. Like
No.
I'll give him credit where it's due. He did move away from that. However, he seems to have reverted, and yeah.
He said he never stopped being a Trump supporter to me recently. Like he said that it was always, yeah. He
said that. Okay, he said that once you go liberty, you don't go back. So I had a pretty long conversation with him, and he seemed genuine. Like the thing that initially struck me was that like he was not a smooth talking politician by any stretch. Like I met him, I'm like, oh hey, you're also a socially awkward nerd. Like I liked the fact that he was genuine, but I mean, okay, it's entirely possible. Like, yeah, maybe he was better at pandering than he seemed.
You lost it on me.
Well,
what was that?
Well, one thing, first off, feel free to activate your camera. One thing I'll say is that he said that
you know the rule.
He said that if he was like, the reason he went by deplorable was because it was a reference. He didn't say what the reference was to, but he also never said that he went back on that. He said, he is still basically that person. And he got thrown off Twitter for saying that trans people aren't real and they're a Marxist invention. So I don't. He's a shitbag. He's been a shitbag.
I did talk to him about that, like, because I did ask him about like the trans issue. Like, I don't agree with him on this. However, like, because I kind of tested the waters. I'm like, well, I have a lot of empathy for people who are suffering from gender dysphoria. He said that he did too. His position seems to be that the majority of people who are identifying as trans nowadays were just caught up in some kind of psyop, but the dysphoria is real. So I don't agree with him on that, but like he's at least not saying, oh, trans people are all a bunch of groomers or some bullshit. Like, so like I was pleasantly surprised that his takes on it were better than I expected, because I was a little worried about the social issues, because I figured I was going to disagree with him on that. But I'm like, well, he's at least good on imperialism and on economics. So I'm willing to support him for those reasons. But yeah.
But he's also standing behind his tweet where he said that transgenderism is a Marxist invention. And he's also like...
he said a Malthusian, like that's some kind of depopulation agenda, which I'm sorry, that is I'm not going to believe that there's any sort of depopulation agenda until we start seeing like sterilization procedures become easily available, because they're currently not. So the whole idea that there's a depopulation agenda is just like makes no sense until, yeah. But like I thought he said it was a Malthusian plot to render people infertile or discourage them from having kids. And
okay. Well, I'm looking for the screenshot that I thought he posted, but I can't immediately find it. Either way,
you probably sent it to me at some point.
Either way,
once.
The general thing that I'm saying is he's been this way. He never walked back the shit that made him that way. So the idea that he was no longer a Trump supporter when he functionally still supported Trump, to me, is like a distinction without a difference. Whether or not he supported the man or supported like all of the man's basic positions and wanted to be that version of the man is irrelevant to me, especially since he wanted to call himself the American Malay, which is cringe as fuck. Make your own name for your own damn self. Fuck you. But like beyond that, he wanted to say he's the American Malay, and Malay wants to say he's the Argentinian Trump. So it's the same shit. It's all the same shit in the same shitter. I don't care. Like, if somebody says that they're no longer supporting Trump, but they're still supporting basic Trumpism, I don't give a shit. They're a liar.
Yep.
They can go fuck themselves.
Well, I'm just disappointed that he didn't continue his, like, he said that he was going to carry on with the Project Decentralized Revolution and with basically what was supposed to be his campaign strategy of visiting universities and trying to teach kids economics. Like, he said he was going to carry on with that anyway. He hasn't done any of that. He's basically just, yeah. I mean, it has become considerably harder to want to support him with the way he's been acting after convention.
Well, and so I'll pass it to Kareem shortly, because like Kareem hasn't said words in a bit. Then I'll go Bryce and Joseph, but real quick to respond to Archie. Going on Tim Pool is one thing. Going on Tim Pool with Kaufman, etc., is a whole other ball game. Yes, that's true. Like,
But if you go on there to yell at them, though.
But that's the thing. You won't get a word in edgewise, and nobody who had any Caryn, like I thought she was the best person on that episode.
Yes, watching her get ganged up on and have,
Yes.
Oh my god! Like I'm like wow. I mean, I knew it, but like I guess it's easy to forget how stupid Tim Pool is. But he's like, yeah.
Well, it's not even that he's
calling it communism while he's advocating for collectivism himself. Like,
but it's not even that he's remarkably stupid. It's that he knows his audience is not bright enough or ethical enough to give a shit when he's lying. He's a liar. He is an evil, manipulative piece of fucking shit. And anybody who supports his messaging is supporting that lie. Whatever the lie is in the moment. He always has to invent something. He always has
the lie, though? Doesn't have like I don't think he has any consistent principles of his own, though. That's always been my take on him. That's why I've always found him annoying. He doesn't seem to have any consistent ideas.
The wokes and the left and the mainstream and the whatever are bad. The globalism.
But what does that mean, though? That changes from day to day based on
but that's
pandering.
But that's exactly it, though. He's always pandering to the right. So he doesn't need to, like, you know. So he's a right winger trying to use whatever means necessary to scare people. That's what he does, and he's good at mass media manipulation and cultivating an audience of cult-like little sheep people who are doing his bidding. That's what he's there for, and he's actually very good at it. I don't like underestimating people's intelligence. I think he is smart, and I think he's an evil piece of shit, and I hope he loses everything.
Well, he does know how to run a media empire. That much is definitely true.
And he knows how to do exactly one skateboard trick.
Doesn't he have his own skate park too?
Yeah, and he's really bad at it. If you've he's taken some footage some points, but he's like he has the park so that he can like vaguely interact with it occasionally, but it's mostly so that he has it.
I thought he was going to start like a whole skate channel so he can pander to the younger generation by making cool like skate videos with a Gadsden flag in the background.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I didn't see that happening.
He said years ago, that's what he said he was going to do. He's like, we need to start building culture. So he's like, I'm going to be that guy who does all the cool skateboard videos, but then I have a Gadsden flag in the background so that kids will like have positive associations with it.
Well, Kareem, do you have words that you want to say, or are you jacking off under the desk?
Yeah,
both. You can do both.
Yeah, I can do both. Yeah,
but it's gonna have that weird little vibration in the background because like it's got that shake motion. Yeah.
I guess that's aggressive.
Yeah, imagine if that's how you were constantly just every time you just like fucking like it hit the bottom of your hand. You've got like a little groove worn in it from the edge of the desk. Anyway, go.
He's just doing his shake weight. Jeez, can he get in a workout between comments?
Yeah, but I would insult him if he used a shake weight. Those are completely inefficient.
No.
You get no muscle fiber recruitment. You get no like mind body connection. You get nothing. Like every bodybuilder I listen to says don't use those. They're jack off training.
I mean, yes.
But I mean, hey, the current way the Libertarian Party is going, that might be an effective skill. Kareem.
All right, so let's break down good old Rectenwald. My issue with him is he says one thing, he's like, yeah, NCOMs like me, stuff like that. Then he loses his mind over Bookchin. Sometimes he's cool, but then sometimes he's like, well, Collectivism means that you have a state if you get together and you have associations. I'm like, no, that means my like book club is a state. So is that correct
Yeah,
or
that
not?
was my experience with him too. He
Yeah, so
flops a lot.
he goes now. Sometimes he's good. Sometimes what he says is I agree with. Sometimes I disagree with him. It is what it is. I think the Libertarian Party, in and of itself, could. I mean, I'm tired of taking over or not taking over. Maybe we need one last takeover where we invite everybody. We work with left and right libertarians. We don't care about somebody's, I bring Jack and Fo back. I don't care if somebody disagrees with me. I don't care if somebody has a problem with me. As long as they're not like a murderer or rapist or anything like that, or doing something terrible. I think we should honestly have a bunch of people and a bunch of, we should have a bunch of people who are, who have different views, different ideas, are working on, different projects. I don't care to constantly fight these like left, right, libertarian battles for no reason, because I don't see a point. I don't see a point in what we're doing. I feel there's too much infighting. Should be honestly fighting the state. I went to Reno because I wanted everybody to get on the same page so we could fight the state. We end up fighting each other. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't like, people like, don't you see all these, don't you see this drama, that drama, this person did this person said that, this person acted like this person, did whatever they did. I don't really care. What I do care is that we get on the same page. We work at what we need to work at, which to me is quite simple. We come up with a unified game plan to fight the state, to decentralize. And I actually liked Kokesh's idea partially, and I liked Heiss's idea partially, and I think it made sense. If the Libertarian Party could be used for something, it would not be for federal politics, because federal politics to me is largely a waste of time. You're not going to win unless you know somebody who is literally going to crowdfund. I like our mutual aid requests, but I don't think Comrade Brett's going to whip out $2 billion or $100 million, or like Kamala raised $80 million in a couple of days. Whether she wins or not, that's insane. So what we can do, Kokesh had an idea to go to the federal government and shut it down. They're not going to let you do that, clearly. Heiss had an idea of going and winning, local elections, saying, hey, it's easier to nullify the feds at the local level than to go to the feds and maybe try and do it there. My thing would be if we're going to use the Libertarian Party, take the Libertarian Party, work with left and right people who want decentralization, help them win local elections. They win local elections with any, thing, help them build a society then that's libertarian, a mutual aid society, and, whatever it is, a Rothbardian society anyway, help them make a liberty society. You make a few of those. You keep building that up. Eventually, one day you turn around and the state governments and federal governments are obsolete. And then you actually do have pan-anarchy, and I imagine that would be a lot freer.
That's Michael Rechtenwald?
Hmm?
You started by saying you were going to break down Michael Rechtenwald. I'm wondering how we got here.
No, I was just going to say just what he said.
Well, I mean, yeah, we should definitely get more practical, and that's certainly a thing. But like the thing is, like, you're not going to get practicality to me out of this mechanism because this mechanism has been built by people who have a practicality goal for other practicalities. They're practicing other things, and like they don't have an interest in what you consider practical because the things that they're practicing aren't what you're practicing. So their version of practicality is let's get Maga Maha on board because those people are huge and we might be able to get some traction. You can't wheedle your way into that version of practicality by saying stupid things like, the Libertarian Party should follow the law. And if you agreed by contract to follow a set of rules like Roner, you should follow it and stop being a cunt about it. And like those kinds of things will get you thrown out on the grounds of their practicality because their practicality does not practically, in practice, endorse those positions. It doesn't say that the law is even necessary to follow. Like one of the things that I said in my recent rant against Caryn, or sorry, not against Caryn, against Angela about Caryn, is I said that I talked about her dumb little comment about like D&D, and I said, like if the dungeon master keeps breaking the rules and then ejecting players for bringing up the rules, eventually they're gonna go get a different fucking DM. And the general.
Oh right, yeah. What a stupid analogy that was.
Well, she wants to make it seem like the Libertarian Party's just like anybody who disagrees with her is just a spoiled kid, and that's because she's a fucking cunt.
Oof. Well, I will say, like, look, there is a genuine problem with the Libertarian Party just wanting to sit around, arguing over Robert's rules while not doing anything. However, at the same time, this is a voluntary organization that you agreed to join. You agreed to abide by the rules as set forth when you joined. And there is a process for changing the rules if you don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, we didn't even get a chance to do that at the last convention because we were too busy having to structure the entire thing around the fucking Trump rally.
And also too busy, like, fighting over the bullshit idea of fake
delegates.
Oh,
well, the entire first day was just the Michigan delegate.
Chris Baker is messaging me.
Gotcha. We got, so...
Yeah, I told him to take that up with Jeremiah.
So we got Bryce and then Joseph?
Should I send him a link?
Go for it.
All right, so, I will, what I wanted to talk about actually goes back to like the very last thing that Joseph talked about. Regardless of what you're critical, whether or not you're critical about the Mises Caucus now, which is fair, putting yourself back in the position of Reno, right? Okay. They didn't, I wouldn't really necessarily call it stacking the deck. They recruited very effectively into the party in a way that the two dominating factions at the time of the Libertarian Party, which were the Cato Institute and the fucking Classical Liberal Caucus, weren't really doing. And in a way that the Radical Caucus, which was like the precursor to, it was like the more socially left version of the Mises Caucus, where they wanted to be radical anarchists. It was where their movement had kind of failed as well. The Mises Caucus actually successfully recruited, so it wasn't like they necessarily stacked the deck. I mean, yes, they wanted their people in power. The reason they wanted their people in power is because the classical liberals and the Cato Institute had been running the party for 30 fucking years and had done nothing with it. Now, yes, you could argue that over the last couple of years, they have either deviated from that goal or just straight up failed. But with Reno, the reason they weren't willing to work with anybody outside of their own people is because they had seen the party run by the other factions, and it like the best thing they can claim they did was what Gary Johnson got 3% of the popular vote, and then membership dropped.
Yeah. No lasting movement whatsoever. It was just people voted for him
Right.
because they didn't
And
want. No one voted for him. They voted against Trump and Clinton. Like he was the none of the above option.
And that's the thing. Like, you can be critical of the caucus now.
Mm-hmm.
The reason the Mises Caucus acted the way they did at the time of Reno is because, okay, the Cato Institute specifically had started launching smear campaigns against Ron Paul, which a lot of the founding members of the Mises Caucus were Ron Paul people. Then there was also the shit with them going after Tom Woods, which, whether you think Tom Woods is a pedo or not, the leaders of the Mises Caucus weren't particularly happy about that being used as a smear campaign. So, like, fine, fuck you guys. Why are we going to work with you? You've done nothing with the party over the last 30 years, and you're smearing people we care very deeply about. So why would we play nice with you? Now, again, like I said, whether or not they've stuck true to their initial mission statement, I mean, they've definitely stuck true to the idea that only their people should be running the show. But whether or not they've stuck true to their mission statement or not, I mean, you can make the case for that, for whether they have or not. And I'm open to that argument. But the whole reason they went into Reno and were like, no, we're only voting for our people, is because they were fed up with how the party had been ran. And they were fed up with the smear campaigns against people that they cared a lot about. So they were like, fine. Fuck you guys. You don't deserve to run the show if you're gonna run the party into the ground and then smear the people that brought us into libertarianism to begin with.
Thank you.
And
yes.
That was
go ahead.
Most I had to say about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I may criticize the caucus a lot now because I'm not happy with a lot of the things they've done over the past year, but like the old leadership is not without blame at all, because fact of the matter is the purge of the old leadership, I do think, was in a lot of ways needed. Yeah, I think they have gotten off course at this point, but like the whole, like they were slandering us from pretty much the beginning because they viewed us as a threat to the to their positions, which, like, the whole idea that they were just basically a social club, it's not without some amount of truth. I think there were people who held positions within the party where it just, like, it was like the one thing that made them feel important. And we were treated as a threat from the beginning. You know, we were slandered as fascists and racists and blah, blah, blah from the beginning, when during the time of the Reno reset, like, I know for a fact that that was not true, because there were so many great people within the Mises Caucus who really did just want to take control of the party, because we were, like you said, so sick of the old leadership, and we just wanted to push it in the right direction and use it as a vehicle for actual radical libertarian messaging. So yeah, I mean, I may be frustrated with the caucus now, but I'm still just as frustrated with the original leadership, which, and also I'll say this, like, they had 2 years to implement a strategy to take back the party. They completely failed. Like, they have no organization. Okay, like I said, like, I may have voted for someone else for chair if it had actually been a good alternative to Angela, but okay, who was there? Rutherford? Like, he's so forgettable that I frequently forget he even exists and that he's vice chair. Like, they had no plan whatsoever. Basically, their entire shtick has been to just complain incessantly about the Mises Caucus and go on about how there are fascists or Republican plants that are being paid by dark money to ruin the party or whatever. Like, all they've really done is complain on social media for the past 2 years. And also they did the same thing before that. So I'm just saying,
Basically,
I'm not happy with how they're running the party right now either, but there are still no viable alternatives. Okay? If someone is willing to step up and be an actual radical libertarian, stick to principled libertarian messaging, not sell out to Democrats or Republicans, I will happily support them. But that currently does not exist.
Basically, the strategy was anybody but the Mises Caucus.
Pretty much.
Joe.
Right. So, got a couple different things. I'm going to try and hit them here in pretty quick sequence. One, my experience with personal leadership in the Mises Caucus, being a non-Mises member when they decided to invade Idaho. Okay. I recognize that there were good people in several other of the organizations across the United States. Some of them I still even respected at least halfway through, the last term of Angela. But what this comes down to is when we went into Reno, the recruiting was done by Dave Smith. People showed up at Reno to support a Dave Smith for president ticket when Dave had already backed out of the agreement. On top of that, a lot of this was frat-style organization. Come on, 12 shots, shoot the homeless? Come on.
Okay, the 12 shots thing is complete bullshit if you listen to what he said. I'm just putting that out there. Anyway, go ahead with the homeless thing.
It was still said, but
I
anyway.
know what he said because I'm very familiar with the quote.
Yeah.
I may have my disagreements with Dave Smith on some things, especially his takes on homelessness, which I view as completely unhelpful. However, we do not gain anything by spreading blatant lies about people. And this is the issue I have with the non-Mises faction. They lie and they slander people. Does the Mises Caucus do that too? Oh, yeah. I have seen them do it firsthand, and it's bothering me too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But this was the frat boy recruit process that brought in a collective mentality that was willing to vote lock, stock, and barrel based on whatever flag was friggin' raised in Reno. Okay, now, that's not something I really want to dwell on because that's water under the bridge. Where we're at right now is the Libertarian Party is still schizophrenic. Rechtenwald, he's bipolar. Yeah, whatever. The LP, it's still schizophrenic. It's always been schizophrenic. Yeah. You've always had the element within that's recruited radicals, libertarian to faction, has always been a pipeline that's existed within the party. We've tried to squash it. We keep bringing it back for some reason. Yeah, that's a reality of radicalization. The idea of, everybody has liberty, and then people get radicalized to the idea that, well, not everybody deserves liberty. And it's like, well, hold on, where are you going with this? And next thing you know, we end up with an Aryan Nations, rally up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We continue to see stuff like that as a result of the radicalization. How do we compete against the idea that there will always be those who believe they're more entitled to freedom than others? Jeremy Kauffman in his, free state of New Hampshire, feels that only certain people are qualified to be libertarian. It goes clear back to the whole, Adam Smith, the Constitution is only valid for a moral and upright people. Thing is if you keep writing laws to disqualify the ability for people to make their own choices, you will never, ever have a moral and upright population because the choices are all made under duress. So what is liberty and who is authorized? If you're not advocating liberty for everyone, you're advocating for fascism. And that's, a core issue that, we continue to have with the radicalization of anybody in America. It doesn't matter whether it's the Mises, it doesn't matter whether it's classical liberals. We've all seen all of them drift to the idea that some people don't deserve liberty.
Yeah, well, libertarianism is kind of a stopping point, I think, for a lot of people. And the Libertarian Party itself may be partially to blame because what happens is people get disillusioned with the two major parties. So what do they initially look to? This third part, like the biggest third party, which is called the Libertarian Party. So they're initially attracted to libertarianism because they just hate the system. Some people actually stay and they get interested in libertarian ideas. For a lot of people, they'll stay for a little while, then they move on to other things.
And that's where you end up with the pragmatic libertarians, because the pragmatic libertarians understand that the people coming over from the two-party system still believe in the state. They're still statists. They still want that shelter, of the safe harbor of the tyrant in the dangerous seas of freedom. Because that is the way we've indoctrinated them. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams agreed that, the public school system was a good thing because it taught people how to not be violent towards the robber barons who stole our government. We're being run by a mob. We've talked about that already today too. Does the United States government, it's in constant violation of the NAP, but we've become so accustomed to those violations that to counter their violations of the NAP with just violence is considered a violation of the NAP. I agree. Why are we not tarring and feathering? Why are we not taking violence back to the state? Not fed boasting here, folks. But
Well, the answer is because it's illegal, and we don't advocate anything illegal.
Violence on this channel. We like to hand politicians and cops a nice bouquet of flowers.
Yeah.
Right. And, if there was one problem I have with Chase on his recent thing, it was the idea that, no, we do not take violence to the state. We do not take violence to the agents of the state who have persistently and consistently violated our rights. Kamala Harris, she deserves to be tried for human rights violations while, AG of California. Donald Trump deserves to be tried for his violation of human rights when he assassinated foreign leaders when they were guests on sovereign territory. We can keep going back, clear back to Washington. Washington deserves to be freaking crucified, for his violation of human rights when he showed up and shot people at the Whiskey Rebellion.
Hey, it wasn't just him. It was also 13,000 other people.
Yeah. At some point, we need to step back and realize, yes, we have to be pragmatic. We have to accept that the people that we want to find freedom, still need to find it on their own, and just the initial interest in what libertarianism means. I want to be taxed less. I want to decide what it is. I want to be able to paint the shed in my backyard without having to file 5 different permits with the county clerk. These are the things that people see libertarianism at, is the way towards it. Being able to make choices for themselves without having to be filing paperwork and be taxed, fined, or pay fees in order to achieve something that they want. It's very basic decision. I want to paint my house purple. Well, the homeowners association ain't going to back you on that, so no, it ain't going to happen. I want to put solar panels on my roof. Well, your neighbor across the street, he's going to object because it reflects into his windows in the morning. At some point, you got to step back and say, where are we in that communications where we're creating a pragmatic situation that increases freedom while pushing the tyrants aside until such a point where people feel comfortable taking responsibility for their own lives again.
I'm assuming Hody has something to respond with that.
No, I think Joe said it perfectly. I completely agree. I think there's a point where we got to say, I don't like violence, and I am opposed to it. I do think they should be tried, for crimes, but beyond trial, as an anarchist, I think the whole system's wrong. So I think we need to do something about it. But I don't think that system. I'm going to make my pacifist point right now. I encourage everybody to read Blueprint for Revolution.
For people who go against the community's ethics, I think.
Yeah, I encourage people to read Blueprint for Revolution if you can. It's kind of a great breakdown, as well as a very constructive one of how to do revolution in a way that actually gets what you want.
Author.
Almost all violent revolutions, even the successful ones. So if you look at Psychology Today has a great breakdown on violent versus peaceful revolutions and which ones succeed and which ones don't, and which ones partially succeed, which I actually really appreciate it, because some of them you get some of what you want, but not all of it. So instead of trying to dismiss all of them as one thing or another, I will say the peaceful revolutions are overwhelmingly more successful. And I think that the issue is that some of the successful ones, like, for example, the French Revolution in like the 1780s to 90s, they succeeded in their goal. They fell back into tyranny within like a second. And that has to do with largely how you protest, not just why. If you protest in a way that gets bad people on your side, then you have a problem. And for me, this all comes down to there being a character issue with the Libertarian Party. We need to look inward instead of outward. The state's always going to be our enemy. That's a given. That's never going to change. They are going to be our enemies. But how did Christianity succeed against Caesar? It wasn't by telling Caesar how much he sucked. It was by looking at themselves and saying, are we doing everything that we can possibly do? And you have issues with them when you look at the book of Acts, when they're not distributing the funds evenly. And people are like, hey, we're not getting our funds. What do? Do they get defensive? Or do they say, actually, you're right. Let's make sure we're more transparent about this. Let's get some of the people who didn't get the funds distributed to them on the board so that they can see how the funds are being distributed. What is it when Chase Oliver got called out for a bad tweet where he said, he dismisses Ron Paul, right? Everybody saw this one.
That was a Facebook post too.
Right, Facebook post. What happened when he got called out for that? Chase was like, you know what? I shouldn't have said it. Ron Paul said that COVID was a hoax in the title of something, and that's what I took issue with. And obviously COVID was not a hoax. But he said, everybody should read that article by Ron Paul, because a lot of what he said came to pass, like would come to pass from this pandemic actually did come to pass. It's a great way to handle criticism, right? Admit when you make a mistake and rectify it. Be like, hey, I shouldn't have said it. And you know what? You guys should go read that article. That's a great thing to do. What is it bad people do? People of bad character when they get called out. When you called Michael Rechtenwald out for being a liar, or you call him or Dave Smith out for calling people faggots, or you tell them, hey, maybe you guys shouldn't maybe use the N-word, or hey, Tom Woods, maybe it's not the best thing in the world that you porked your wife when she was 16 years old and you were 29, right? Like, come on, man. Like, oh, but we didn't get married till we were 18, so it's okay. You called everybody liars when, oh, they must believe I can be in two places at the same time to have even met her when she was 16. Oh, whoops, there's photographic evidence. What happens is dismissal of this. What happens is when you make a comment like the 12 shots, instead of being like, you know what, that wasn't really well said, let me clarify that a little bit. What happens instead? What happens to Dave Smith? Oh, you guys must just be idiots. I've seen the entire clip. Anybody with common sense knows what he's saying there. Now, we who have a positive vision of who Dave Smith is might be able to say Dave Smith is actually maybe right here. Maybe let's talk about this a little bit. But ultimately, that was poorly spoken, should have been better. And we want people who are able to self-correct instead of constantly trying to defend our idols. I get why there are idols. I have the idols too. Listen, I probably listen to more Part of the Problem than anybody on this show, I'm willing to bet. I like the guy as far as his messaging goes. As far as his character goes, yeah, I know why he's like down with the McCardle strategy. Of course it makes sense. He's displayed why. It's character. We're not looking inward enough. We need to pull the plank out of our own eye. People can call it infighting and drama. Look, I want to take the fight to the state as well. But so long as we have these character issues to exploit, we are our own worst enemy. We will continue to be our own worst enemies. I don't understand why we can't handle some correction. Why we need to be able to be like, you know what, let's not be a place. I don't want to crucify Tom Woods, Dave Smith, Ron Paul for their mistakes forever. But I do want to be able to place that say they made these mistakes. Okay, let's confront them. Let's rectify it and let's move on, because that's how we grow. Instead of treating everybody like they need to be some Jesus Christ or Satan 100% of the time. Dave Smith is not Satan 100% of the time, those of you who hate Dave Smith. He's really good at calling out a lot of like kind of niche like news stories that don't make it into the news for those who listen, and they're great learning experiences. And then for those of you who back him all the time, Dave Smith's not a deity. Okay, he makes mistakes. He's really bad for liberty on a couple of issues. And I don't want to just say issues, but on culture, right? Like if you've got somebody around casually calling people kikes, faggots, and retards, that's not good for our culture. We should fix it, and we should be willing to fix it. And if we're not willing to fix it, then we've consigned ourselves to failure. I want the Dave Smith who was like, I mean, on Tim Pool's show, what's the standard Dave Smith laid out to say, should we trust Trump or not? He was like, I just don't want to see any of the same people around. And what does Donald Trump go and do? And Angela assures him, hey, I text with him, I talk with Donald Trump. He's not going to keep the same people around. Anybody catch the last RNC? Anybody see who's Trump is tabbed for his people? Same people, right? He failed the test that Dave Smith laid out for her. And Angela said, oh, no, Trump's going to pass. So don't even worry about that. Okay, so we know he's a guy of bad character, right? Donald Trump is. But we can't control Donald Trump's character. Who is in our circles, though? Dave Smith is. Angela McArdle is. These are people in our circles. And we need to rectify the mistakes that they make. Otherwise, we just fall into the same problems, and we will keep doing this forever. And I know everybody on this call is sick of doing it forever. I could stand to have better messaging. And if somebody calls me out on bad messaging, or if I make a mistake with my facts or something like that, I've done this with like a Dave Smith quote before. Made a mistake. I want people to call me out, and I want to be able to say, yup, I really botched that. I'm really sorry about it. I apologize. Let's move forward. He's actually really good on this. Like, let's mend some things. Fixing is constructive. What is destructive is either wiping somebody's character out entirely or defending them to the death. Those are the two things the state wants us to do, is become idolaters, either of the state itself and for Donald Trump, or of our own selves, instead of being practical and honest. There's a really great way forward here, and we should really take it, instead of constantly just trying to prop people up as either demons or gods. Neither exist in this earthly flesh.
All right, Rose, you wanted to reply.
Oh, no, I think I pretty much said all that I needed to previously. I think Bryce wanted to say something, though.
Okay.
You know, I did. I wanted to respond to something that Joseph was saying, but honestly, in all the conversation that happened afterwards, I kind of forgot exactly what I wanted to respond to, so I'll yield.
All right. Well.
Oh, I will say, like, I completely agree. Like, we need to stop holding people up as if they're gods of some sort. Like, I feel like every political commentator, whether, you know, a current one, a current celebritarian, a current writer, or one of the previous ones, like, they all had their share of good takes and bad takes. We need to take what they said that we find to be good messaging, and we need to reject some of what they said. Like, no person should be treated as if every single thing they say is just the truth. Like, take the good and then reject the bad. Okay, that's how we move forward. That's how we refine our philosophy. And yeah.
So I'm gonna respond to some chat messages real quick, and people are free to jump in as well. We'll be drawing it to a close relatively soon here, probably within the next, I want to say, 12 to 17 minutes. But there are first thing is, if you're in the chat right now, I just used the poll feature. I'll start to do that a lot more and like actually try to engage with the audience and incentivize audience interaction. And I asked, yeah, I asked if
poll feature.
Yeah, I asked them, and I've known about this for a bit, but honestly, I don't use the tools available to me enough. But the feature, I used it to ask, were you an MC supporter in the early years? And I don't know if everybody's responded yet, but what I'm seeing right now is that a third of them were, and that 2/3 of them were not. So, just interesting little data point.
For who follows, yeah. Like, I guess that kind of tells you who your followers predominantly are.
So what is the thing? Oh yeah, Kokesh. Let's briefly just I want to just briefly just say, yeah, I don't support that, and for a long time I have not supported that, and like Kokesh especially like went off on me about a chili dog a while back because I'm not vegan, but like also fucking the other shit that he's done is like obviously his spousal issues, to put it in a way, and obviously a bunch of other shit. But the general gist that I get off of him is that it doesn't really seem to matter that all that stuff happened, and not a whole lot of it's going to get addressed. And he's just like, he's doing one of these things where he hopes it goes away after a significant period of time. And there's certain people that are having him back on. I had Graham Smith on, who has since basically vacated social media for the most part. To focus on some projects he's doing, and we had this whole thing on Kokesh, so I encourage people to watch that, and there's more involved as well. But Archie Flower says his hat covering up his baldness, Tim Pool, is a consistent gender affirming healthcare principle. Yes, yeah, he's doing gender affirming care. I can't know that I'm a bald.
Yeah, is a hair transplant considered gender affirming treatment?
Yes, actually, I think that would be and even under a trans circumstance. But like, if your hair is part of what's attached to your masculine image, which I know for me it is, but fortunately I don't seem to be having that problem because I have a good diet and shit. Like the general vibe is like, yeah, I think if I remember correctly, that's literally one of the procedures that they can do if you're about to like be, for instance, MTF. They'll fill in your hairline to make you more feminine. So, but like you can also get like a hair plugs to be more masculine, so that you can like when you're on all that testosterone, oftentimes it'll bulge you up. And so like especially if your body isn't used to it, and so like a lot of the time they'll do that. They'll get like plugs and shit like that so that they can like fill that out. And so even in terms of trans, it's like both ways could be considered gender affirming. So Archie also says Poole is smart enough to know the Kremlin money was Kremlin. So yeah. Archie says his camera is off, so why are we assuming he's under the desk? Oh, it's a running gag. At one point I said that, and ever since the thing has been like, you're jacking off.
Yeah, if you're off. On this channel, if your camera is off, it's just assumed that you're jacking off, and you should expect to be awkwardly asked at some point if you're jacking off.
Yeah, like you're gooning. We got to be suspicious about the reasons. Like it's either that or you might be like asleep or something, and that would be somewhat disrespectful. So I'm hoping he's jacking off instead.
At least that's flattering.
Yeah. You gotta hear the sultry tones of my gravelly voice. So yeah, Archie also said Kokesh's idea amounted to declaring himself king. Deer says I haven't heard his name in a while. Yeah, Cecilia says been at least a decade for me, or something like that. 5 or 6 years for me, says Deer. Followed him for a while, Cecilia says, came to the conclusion he's just a grifter. Yeah, absolutely. Cecilia also says of Angela, why I don't want to follow the rules. Yeah, basically. Archie says DMs have infinite power. Chairs is supposed to be limited by honor and the bylaws. See, they have infinite power, but oftentimes if they're trying to actually have a good time with their players, they're not gonna fucking put their players in a circumstance where like they feel that they're being unfairly treated. And they'll also oftentimes really want one of the elements of their campaign to kick off, so that they'll like gently nudge people toward that, or be like really overt, and they'll be like, well, why don't you go down that path? And like, fucking get frustrated because like their infinite power can't make people like come to the same conclusions that they did that seemed obvious when they were writing the campaign. So it's like, yeah, they have ultimate power over them and whether or not they can get what they want in the end. But when it comes down to it, it's still basically just fucking, yeah. So, fucking, where else we at? Deer says that they've I'm not sure what you're saying been a failed strategy about, but every election year more desperate libertarians flock to it, whatever it is. Yeah.
I want to know what I'm flocking to, though.
Yeah, right.
I really want to know what it is.
Yeah, well,
It's gonna keep me up at night.
So
What is this mysterious it thing?
yeah, right. Well, we'll maybe see about that, but like, so I think we're fairly well. Oh, paleo strategy. Yeah, that's true. The Libertarian Party routinely sticks its cock back in that wall outlet.
How many times must we be taught this lesson, is what I'm wondering. How many times have we tried to align with the authoritarian right and gotten thoroughly fucked over? Like, do people forget it was just like a year ago that like Conservative Inc. started its anti-libertarian crusade to slander us? Like,
well, they don't need to
so
forget as long as they get a seat at the table and feel like they're involved. It's
I'm so frustrated.
manipulative bullshit.
Yeah.
Like this is the thing. So I think we're relatively done addressing chat for today. The Caryn situation is an example, and I'll make a sort of pseudo close, and then I'll say a couple of minutes, maybe a minute at the end, but like then I'll pass it around. But the general thing is the Caryn situation is part of a long train of corruption. And it's part of a train of corruption where these people have been building up their power base in their personal power, and they don't give a fuck about your power. It doesn't matter to them. It didn't matter to them for years. What they wanted was a seat at the table. They don't care that the Libertarian Party is relevant. What Angela wants is her own relevance, and she wants to be the chair when the Libertarian Party did that thing. And it doesn't matter whether or not that thing actually pans out. It doesn't matter whether or not that thing actually results in greater levels of liberty. It doesn't matter whether or not that thing actually, creates justice or has any positive impact. What matters is I was there and look at this. And then the pathetic thing is that it flopped. There was nobody at Rage Against the War Machine this year because the anti-war people know what a grift a lot of these people are on. And one of the people at the Rage Against the War Machine, you're coming in right at the end, rally, says, is that you shouldn't worship Trump. And he got really, really bad reception there because of that. And, the general vibe is that, when we have, a libertarian party that is so fundamentally sold out on matters of principle, when the Libertarian Party has no interest in being libertarian and would rather be a political action committee than a party, acting in the interests of whatever fucking political organization or politician they can get a hold of who's willing to, give them their sacred holy relevance, that's what we get when we get this. And this is what we get when we get that. The Libertarian Party is now a mechanism by which individuals can hijack it to raise their relevance levels. And they don't give a fucking shit about you. They don't care about you. They don't want you. What they want is their own personal fucking vendettas solved. They want their own personal fucking, principles met. Even if those principles go against liberty actively. And they will run you out on a rail. They did that to Caryn. Caryn is she has earned well above many people's respect, in the recent, situations. Because all she was saying is basically, follow the rules. and don't throw the people under the bus who got you here. That got her thrown under the bus by people who don't want to follow the rules. These people are not ethical actors. These people want you to ignore the rules that they agreed to follow in the name of, like, preserving their image. And their image is what they're trying to preserve, not liberty. They don't give a fuck about liberty. They're not here to make the world more libertarian. They're not here to make the Trump administration more libertarian. They're here to make themselves rise in prominence. They don't give a fuck about you. And they will throw you under the bus just like they did Caryn. Because Caryn, all she asked, hey, is this against bylaws? We probably shouldn't do that. Hey, do you have a conflict of interest to disclose? Hey, do you really think that this is the proper level of decorum to have on the public business list? Adrian, hey, should we keep the public business list used for public business? Shit like that. Really simple shit. Should we be doing a Trump rally? And should we be, sending out emails with the official LP shit without ever asking anybody's permission? Should the party be a fucking party rather than just your fucking cudgel to do with whatever you please and get whatever message out you want to do? That's what Caryn was asking, and Caryn got the wrong answer for Caryn and for every actual libertarian. And when it comes down to it, that's why she was removed. It's not because she was bad. It's not because she was opening them up to litigation. All she was doing was telling the actual people involved in the legal process what she was legally obligated to tell them, and anybody who doesn't like that can go fuck themselves. And I hope they do, because it would be a more useful use of their time than jacking off about libertarianism they don't support and a party they will sell out for a bag of chips. We'll go to Rose.
Oh, well, I was going to say, she has not been removed yet, so we will see how that plays out. Unless someone can give me a very good reason why they think she should be removed, I am ultimately on her side. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out. It has felt for a long time like a takeover of the takeover caucus is going to be needed. So with that, I would like to announce my official support for the Eggplant Caucus, of which Bryce and I are founding members. I would also like to throw my support behind the Chatterton-Harding ticket for chair and chair for 2026. I'm making that official announcement now.
And we'll go to...
Tommy Lee will be the secretary.
I'm not even sure I've spoken to Bobby Lee. That be an interesting conversation sometime. Chris, I'll give you 4 minutes to say stuff because we're closing up by now, basically.
Yeah, sorry about that. One thing I've learned, if a Skype link has HTTPS and the slashes in front of it, it doesn't work. It just has to be joinskype.com. So yeah, that's important. One of the things that not that many people know about is the current regime has definitely pissed off a lot of libertarians internationally. I mean, there was a tweet about Navalny that was sent out, the Russian guy who was killed, and Mikhail Svetov, he was not happy. And this is a guy who once had an event in Russia and got 10,000 people to show up. You do not want to piss off Svetov. He's not in Russia right now, by the way. I've met him. He's a really solid dude. He's got a channel called SVTV where he puts a lot of his news content out in Russian, of course. And it's a shame I couldn't get onto this because this was one time I was actually at home instead of out doing stuff. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say about the whole disrespect for Chase. It's appalling, and unfortunately, people have used the LP as a springboard for other things for a long time. I mean, some people said Harry Brown ran for president just so he could do a book tour. I'm not. And why did Howard Stern show up in 1994 and say I want to run for governor of New York? But yeah, that was a clusterfuck indeed. But so it's really there's always been a lot of things. I think the problem is nobody owns the organization, so nobody really takes responsibility for it, and nobody really has. And I really wonder if nonprofit organizations will ever really have a long-term vision, or they'll always be acting on these low time preference moves. I mean, when the earlier regime removed Caryn Ann Harlos, did they ever think to themselves, well, this might blow up in our faces? There's a lot of good. I think a lot of people have good hearts, but somehow the party does not bring out the best in them. And I also worry about some people, and I do sometimes worry about Caryn Ann and some other people, because it seems like you really care about the party, but you got to take care of yourself too. And some of these people, whether it be Whitney chairing the convention in 2022 when she had an ear infection, or it's just like, give yourself. But I'm glad you care, but please take care of yourself as well. So that's my podcast is Fountainhead Forum, and we've got a few nice talks with Hody, Ovens O'Brien, and that other guy, that Mises Caucus guy. We all talked about why Chase is a good guy, and Chase is doing. He had a nice little space earlier about helping out with hurricane relief, and I also want to give a shout out to Bitcoin veterans and Shane Hazel, because they were doing a lot of work for the hurricane relief in the Appalachians as well. In fact, Shane would have been a great presidential candidate. It's a shame he didn't run. So I think that's probably my 4 minutes. So thank you.
Hody.
I really agree with what Chris said here. There's a lot of, we got to take care of ourselves if we're going to do something great for the world. Start inside. I want to stress that if you think that you don't have biases, that's probably the biggest sign that you have a lot of biases. The people who are most likely to fail, like the Zimbardo projects, are the ones who think themselves, oh, I wouldn't fall for something that stupid. And I want to think back, like, when you think about it honestly right now, everybody has taken turns saying Caryn Ann Harlos needs some mental help. But have you changed when she's changed? Who's looking out for her, honestly? Honestly, who's looking out for her? Or do we just use the mental health card when it helps us get ahead? Is that something we just say, oh, well, she's on our side. So she's great. She's fine. She's doing good. Yeah, I wouldn't do it in the way that she does it, but, she's great. And then when she's against you, is that when she needs mental help? Is that when she should really step aside and focus on herself? If you find yourself flip-flopping on this, then suddenly you need to kind of look at yourself and be like, all right, am I changing because I want a certain outcome, and that's altering my worldview? So I think that really is where it starts. When we talk about building up ourselves and our own mental health and our own health within the party, we need to start there before we do outreach with the world. I have proposed, and I still think it would be a great idea, if we just stopped talking about policy entirely for 4 years and just said, you know what, we're going to focus on food shelters. We're going to focus on service. We're going to focus on disaster relief, doing what FEMA doesn't do. We're going to focus on helping people. Let the policies fall where they may. I think if we do that, we will find ourselves with more clear policy than if we sit in front of our computers and hash out policy all day. Policy in action is the best kind of policy you can get because we know the practical effects. It's easy to talk about taking the cops and wiping out the homeless if you don't know any homeless and you don't love any homeless. But if you do service for them, suddenly it becomes a little bit more difficult to suggest that cops should just cleanse the streets of the homeless and boot them out. Who cares where they go, right? Screw them, right? As soon as you know them and love them, things change a little bit. And I think that that's something that the Libertarian Party needs right now. I will say this as far as the Angela situation. I want you to imagine, if you will, Nick Sarwark still in charge. And he goes and he meets Kamala Harris on a regular basis, gets her phone number, and she's given him a bunch of assurances that things are going to be way different this time around than they were under Biden. And so let's say Dave Smith is the nominee. So Nick Sarwark elects to take all the resources and effort that we would give to Dave Smith and instead throw it behind Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz. And instead of getting on board with Dave Smith and his message, maybe we throw, hey, get in, loser. We're just trying to defeat, we're just trying to defeat Donald Trump. He throws him an occasional link here and there, but he's really not going to help us and work with us, right? He's more interested in helping Harris win. And Kamala Harris has promised us a libertarian in her cabinet. Oh, did you hear the rally? She said all kinds of great libertarian stuff at the DNC. Things are changing there. There's a lot of people. She's anti-First Amendment and pro-war, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes, believe me, that they're going to get us there. It's going to be way different this time around than it was under Biden.
So sure.
Nick Sarwark would be laughed off stage. If you do not believe that Angela McArdle should be laughed off stage right now for doing the exact same thing to the other side, you have a bias that you need to fix. And I understand we all have our biases. Most people in this call probably have a preference if we said it's either Trump or Harris, right? But thankfully it's not. I'll end by saying this. When I study history, and I love studying history. We had a history, somebody recommends some history in this very episode. I'm reading this book called The Fall of Civilizations. It's fantastic. A lot of great research. But I think when I look at it, what I end up saying is thank God for the people that didn't compromise. Thank God for the people that when slavery went down said, no, this ain't it. And I'm not going to compromise with a bunch of people just because we have to get something or the other done. Because those are the people that led to the end of slavery down the road. Not the people who sold out. The people who sold out kept slavery going. They said, we'll revisit in 20 years. Maybe it'll go away. Yeah, it didn't go away. The only reason slavery went away is because of the people hundreds of years before that said, no, absolutely not. And this goes with every right, whether it's right to try a drug, right to love who you love, right to a free economy. These agoras, the only reason these agoras come out aren't because of the people in that generation. It's because of the people who pushed for agoras when agoras were wildly unpopular hundreds of years before. You read any history book and you look at the people they may have lost at the time, but you look at history and you say, man, that was a real winner. Because look, those are the types of people that ended up making a difference down the line. I'm cool with taking the unpopular position. I don't want to compromise 50 years ago with the eugenicists. I don't want to compromise 100 people, 100 years ago with some of the genocidal maniacs. I don't want to be those libertarians that sided with either Pinochet or Stalin, or through some, credit to Mao Zedong for what he was doing, or maybe some credit to Adolf Hitler, because at least he was defeating the right people. I don't want to be the libertarians that said, yeah, slavery's okay. We'll work on that later. Give us 20 years and we'll figure it out. I don't want to be those libertarians. I want to be the libertarians that said, no, thank you, Donald Trump. No, thank you, Kamala Harris. We're going to do the right thing. And maybe that means getting 1%, 2%, 3%, 5% of the vote today. But we never get to 100% of the vote tomorrow by compromising today. That's a way to make sure tomorrow never happens. Of course, that's why the state wants you to do it. Of course, that's why the state is so interested in engaging the Libertarian Party when they're most interested in selling out. That's why the mainstream media clamps onto it and says, hey, look, here's an article saying maybe it's time for libertarians to support Kamala Harris. Here's a chair saying, oh, hey, maybe it's time to support Donald Trump. The duopoly in mainstream media and the regime love it, because that's a good way to make sure liberty never happens. Don't feel bad for being uncompromising, because you can look throughout thousands of years of history and say, who were the people that ended up actually making liberty happen? It wasn't the people that caved in. It wasn't the people who sold out. It was the people who refused to sell out. You may lose today. You may go to your grave a loser. People may forget your name. But the good that you do by standing by your principles, by standing by people of good character, that will go on forever. If liberty ever wins, it'll be because you didn't sell out today. And that's what I want to do. That's the Libertarian Party that I want to see. So it's real. That's why I find it so unfortunate what's happened. But those are my thoughts. Hody Johns, I'm with the Love First Christians. We welcome people of all walks of faith. If you want to have Christ-centered conversations or even challenge us, we'd love to have you. We have had so many like atheists, hedonists. We have Catholics, Orthodox, Protestant, Jews, many different conversations. We love this community. The love first part is what we're interested in. If you are interested in a philosophy that's more love first than philosophy or technicality first, you're really going to like what we're all about. And I, as always, I appreciate everybody on the panel. I appreciate you, Jeremy, for giving me time to talk on your show. It means a lot to me.
I'm glad you showed up. We'll go to Joe, then Kareem, then Bryce.
So one of the things I forgot to mention earlier, Malthusian, there's definitely a plot afoot. Harris and Trump are both very much involved in it. Fauci led them both straight down, and you saw the Libertarians split over it, hoping that the other half of the Libertarian Party would die because they chose the wrong side. Well, it didn't happen that way. We got people on both sides, still very much alive, still very much kicking, still very much working towards liberty in the end, even after they realized that that particular Malthusian plot was going to fall flat. All the monsters I've ever met looked human when I met them. And it's going to continue to be that way. Angels and demons, it doesn't matter. They both look at humans the same way. People who feel that they have the ear of God continue to look at us the way that angels and demons do. Pay attention. Look out for your friends. Look out for your family. Look out for the homeless guy. Be wary of the pathological. Be wary of your dark triad friends who feel that there are always others that are beneath them. We're all on this same hurtling ball going through space at 1,000,000 miles an hour, just waiting for something to collide into us and end it all. We can do better. We can love each other. We can support each other. And more than anything else, we can put an end to the fear that the state insists we live in. Take care of yourselves and look out for your mental health. And yes, Caryn Ann Harlos is still crazy. She still needs help. She needed help before. She'll need help for the next 2 years. I'm not changing my point on that one. She needs help.
Don't we all? We're libertarians. I feel like every single person in this stream is probably neurodivergent in one way or another. At the very least.
No. Hey, Rose. The term is neurodiversity because it's inclusive. We like all of our batshit crazy.
Yeah,
we're not trying to exclude any of our except for the dark triad. You can definitely do without the narcissistic sociopath Machiavellians.
Yes, I draw the line there at that it's somehow ableist to be against them. Yeah, fuck the dark triad type. But otherwise, yes. Okay, we are the Libertarian Party. We're supposed to embrace neurodiversity.
Absolutely. Hey, I work with Kind Idaho. I'm currently working on decriminalization of marijuana in the state of Idaho. Personal use, home cultivation. Take care of yourself, even if that means growing your own herb. In addition to that, repeal the grocery tax in Idaho and reproductive rights. This is a woman's choice. The state and its monopoly on violence should not be leveraged against 12-year-old girls. Thank you.
Yeah, at some point, I think maybe if I remember correctly, you're around like Moscow. Some point, maybe we should like actually connect, because like it's weird to me growing up in SoCal all this time. Fucking, I'm moved fucking half a decade ago, maybe 6 years now. Up here, and now I'm like really close to Idaho, a thing that I never thought would be the case. So yeah, at some point we can actually talk.
Neighboring states.
Yeah.
You guys can be buddies. Yeah, Joe, I hope you'll join us on more of our like theory-based anarchist streams because I feel like we probably have a lot of overlap ideologically.
Yeah, we got one coming up on Sunday. It'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern. So, and like
yeah, the LP brings out the worst in everyone because I feel like I end up arguing with people who I otherwise generally get along with about LP shit. Well, okay, can ask Jeremiah this. He and I nearly stopped talking around the time of the convention because we clashed so hard over stupid LP shit.
But we'll go to, and then I've got some wrap up comments I'll be making, but we'll go to Kareem and Bryce. That is if Kareem is not jacking off under the desk.
I think they both fell asleep.
That would be funny if they just fell asleep on the stream. All right, well, whatever. I'll make my closing comments. Maybe they're just out of the room. I'll give them a moment. But like, my closing. First off, I will say, fuck Shane Hazel, and his anti-Semitism that he's been on lately. I'm really glad that he's not the Libertarians' presidential candidate, and I think Chase is a much better example of libertarianism than he is. I think he was long-term sort of one of the compromised sorts of people, and I think he needs to get his house in order before starting to assess a bunch of other people's, because he's doing the same bullshit that so many other people do and just jumping on that fucking anti-Jew grift. Pretending that, like, because he found a meme once that has, like, a list of alleged Jews, that he doesn't have to fact-check any of that and he could just push it forward. He's a cunt. But, like, what I will say is that I'm glad that he's doing work with the disaster relief, and I do hope that that as many people get involved with that as possible. I'm not going to try to take that and say that, he's not doing a good thing. But what I will say is that, like, he needs to get his house in order in a variety of other ways before I'll support him politically and philosophically. What I'll say, though, is the general thing, I'm way not, mentally sane. My brain is constantly fucked. There's not a night that goes by that I don't have, like, a night terror or some shit like that. I've constantly got, like, the noise in here, and, fucking weird shit. Like, it's one of the things that's interesting is, with my genetics the way they are, or whatever, like, caused this, I get, like, really, like, fast dreams when I'm on my way to sleep. Like, I can be falling asleep and then see something fly at me and then immediately wake up. Or, like, some shit like that. And it's that sort of thing that also means that when I'm really tired, I can oftentimes also see and or hear shit. Like, and it happens fucking frequently. I am mentally fucked. And
you talking about the Hat Man? Do you see the Hat Man when you're tired?
I don't think Hat Man, but, like, I see things. Definitely a topic for conversation, but, like, the general thing is that, like, I'm not one to talk about needing to be perfectly mentally clear in order to proceed. And personally, I think that Caryn is on a much better mental wavelength than Angela, by a damn sight. And I would rather have 1,000 allegedly insane people who are operating on a wavelength like what Caryn is right now than one Angela. Because Angela is totally willing to, with a clear head and a clear conscience, sell the party to fascism. And if the people who are allegedly insane and or not well are the ones calling that out, it might be because they've been watching the thing that they beloved and poured so much time and effort and energy into get fucked by fascists. And if that's the case, I'm with them. And I will be with them. And I'm not ever going to not be with them. I think Caryn is in a similar headspace to what Dana was when Dana was forced to tears on those public meetings where Chatterdon was like treating her like shit for having the audacity to say follow the fucking rules. This party is run by people who want to use it as a weapon, and this party is run by people who do not give a fuck about other people. That's the reason they'll shit on trans people. That's the reason they'll shit on migrants. That's the reason they'll shit on blacks. That's the reason they'll fucking spread Haitian cannibal and or pet eater lies. That's the reason they will push whatever dog shit garbage or litter box garbage they have to in order to pretend that the wokes have gone too far. These people are evil. These people are sold the fuck out. And when it comes down to it, some people are along for the ride. Some people thought they were on a different bus and are trying desperately to either get off or at least seize control of the wheel before it goes off the fucking cliff. Those people are people like Caryn, who are trying to do whatever they fucking can to right this ship. But ultimately, they're not going to get anywhere if the people like Angela are treated as though they're somehow on a higher mental key. They aren't. Angela is an evil piece of shit. And I have zero reservations in saying that. There are some people who follow me who are friends with her and won't like me saying that. But there's a reason she does not respond to my criticisms. There's a reason she keeps all of her words in a house. There's a reason she moves in the directions and the ways that she does, and it's not because she's a good fucking person. She wasn't a good person. She isn't a good person, and she has found her in. Maybe there was a semblance at some point where she was saying, I could try the good person route. We'll see if that gets me what I want. But it was always about getting what she wants, not getting what's good for people, and not getting what actually helps the fucking party. And not actually what gets us more liberty, and not what moves us in the direction of greater freedom. They're always talking about moving the needle, but really the needle is what addicts them. Fuck these people. They are in the way, and if we do not abolish their tendencies and distance ourselves from their mentalities and their culture and get better culture that doesn't treat minorities like a fucking pawn to treat like shit so that they have something to campaign on, we are fucked. And if we don't get away from this mentality while we do that, of saying that anybody who tries to get these people to follow the fucking rules is somehow a problem, if we don't get away from that, the party has zero hope of getting back on track, because they will never be held accountable. If they don't have to follow the rules that they signed up to follow, then we are fucked. If they don't have to follow the rules and support the candidates in their own party, then the party does not exist. It's not a party anymore. It's their fucking pulpit where they can tell whatever lies and wield whatever power they fucking want to. And I always thought it was this way, you know? I was under no illusions that it would be different this time, because I was already a cynical, jaded asshole about it. But here's the deal. If you're sick of this shit, there is other ways. There are better ways that aren't being advanced by people like this, because they want to trick you into believing the only solution is political, and that the only political solution is them. They are building a cult. They are building a cage around your mind and your soul, and they want you in chains. Either get the fuck out of those chains, or do not whine about slavery. Because we will never, ever abolish it fully until we smash the fucking state.